Hey guys, Super Rugby Pacific round 13 is coming up this weekend. The team sheets are out and I have scanned them to identify who I think will be the best picks for Fantasy Super Rugby this round. Don't forget, there's a shorts video on my channel, less than a minute long, that will summarize all the picks. Also, don't forget, in the description there is a chapter select so you can jump forward to any particular position you might be interested in. Now, before we get into the picks, let's have a quick look at the fixtures to see where the points are going to be scored this week. Now, there's only 4 games this week. We have 3 teams on a bye, a lot of teams from the New Zealand Conference, and yeah, that kind of makes things a bit tricky. A lot of our favorite players are not going to be available this week. And these matches are kind of tricky to pick in as well. The big one for the week is Crusaders versus the Chiefs in Christchurch. Conditions look good for this game, although I am a little bit worried. You know, when you get these big teams going head to head, it can be quite a tight tussle. You always have 2 very good defenses. Teams can tend to play a bit more conservatively as well, kicking the ball, taking the threes. So yeah, I'm a little bit wary of this game. Even though you've got 2 very potent attacking forces, I'm just not that sure there is necessarily going to be a lot of points scored, which means there might not necessarily be a lot of fantasy points. So staying wary on this game. I do kind of like Blues against the Ndrua, but it is in Fiji, and we all know just weird things can happen in Fiji. The Ndrua, they're a different team over there. Another thing as well is that there is a chance there could be a bit of wet in Suva when this game goes down, so check that forecast if you're thinking about picking outside backs in either of these teams, because if it does rain, it probably will put a serious damper on things and probably favor the Blues, who do really like to play that tight grinding game with the tight forwards. So, and after that, I mean, we have Waratahs versus the Reds. This should be a good game. It is in Sydney. The Waratahs have been very strong at home, although I do expect the Reds to win this one. And yeah, it could potentially be quite an open, high-scoring game as well. I'm really not sure. It's always tricky for me to pick players from these teams, with the exception, of course, of Joseph Suali'i. So yeah, just a weird game to try and pick players in. And then we have the Force versus the Brumbies over in Perth. I do actually like this game. There always seems to be it's always a good running track in Perth, right? There always seems to be open running games over there. And I do favour the Brumbies to take this game, although I have underrated the Force in Perth all year, so be aware of that. But yeah, I just think picks from both these teams could actually go quite well, so I am kind of liking this matchup a lot. If you disagree with my assessment of how these games are going to play out, keep that in mind going forward with the picks. I will present a lot of different options, and depending on how you see these games playing out, yeah, that might be why I tend to rate some players more than you might. So keep that in mind. But let's jump into the picks now, starting with the outside backs. Like I said before, I am kind of liking Brumbies and Force backs this week because of how open this game could be. I think Corey Toole is going to be a very strong option. I've got him locked in. Harry Potter and even Kurtley Beale, I think they're really in play this week. I mean, Harry Potter, he's just been super consistent in recent weeks, getting good scores in very tough games where they've lost, games where they haven't even scored a lot of points. He's been very strong. At home, potentially, he could go quite well. And Kurtley Beale, we only just saw him come back and play his first game against the Blues. Did pretty well in a losing effort as well, 47 points. Did score a try, which kind of boosted his score up a bit. Actually, a lot of his points seem to come from carrying meters, plus 12. A lot of what he did in that game, and I really like this in a fantasy player, is he received the ball at the back, but instead of kicking it back and getting into kicking drills and playing the territory game, he just carried it up and brought it back to the line. looked pretty handy as well, connecting with his outsides and those expansive sort of movements when the Force did those. So he could be a good pick playing at home in Perth. One thing to be aware of though, I think he was able to do that against the Blues just because the Blues kick chase game wasn't really on point last week for whatever reason. I think it was because Corey Evans, he got put on the wing. I think he's quite inexperienced there, and that's why the Blues kick chase wasn't so good. That won't be the case against the Brumbies. Like, the Brumbies have an extremely good kick chase game, very fast wingers, so might not be the same thing this week, but still, Beale, he is a guy I think that should be on the radar, even if he isn't really one of my preferred picks. Other than that though, apart from Toole, of course, I think whenever he's in play, you got to say Tom Wright is in play as well. He never seems to do as well as Toole, but he could still potentially get a pretty good score. Other players in the outside backs I'm liking this week as well is the Blues wingers. AJ Lamb, he's getting a start at 11. He's played a lot of 12 this year, even though he's listed as an outside back on fantasy, and that's why he pretty much never gets picked. But I mean, he's been putting up pretty good scores for a guy who's playing that tight end in the 12 jersey. We saw him play one half on the wing for the Blues last week against the Force and got 37 points. Pretty good effort for such a short amount of time on the field. Score was boosted up a bit by getting that try, but I mean, we've seen in the midfield he can carry really well. He's very strong in contact. He can bust tackles. So I think with him on the wing, and if it is dry in Fiji, it will be expansive. He will probably get a lot of play and he could go very well. The other wing is actually Cole Forbes, all the way down the bottom here in terms of average score. To be fair to him, he hasn't got a lot of minutes. He's been coming off the bench a lot, which really does sort of sink your average score in terms of how it gets displayed here in fantasy. He got 72 points last week against the Force, did get 2 tries, and he was pretty much there, Johnny on the spot for Beauden Barrett's crossfield kicks. We all know how much Beauden Barrett loves that option. He's playing this week against the Endura. The option's probably still going to be there. They'll probably try it on. So yeah, Cole Forbes, he is a live option as well. Much the same as AJ Lamb might be in that position too. Other than that though, if you don't like the Blues, or if it does look like it's going to be a bit wet there, you've still got the Crusaders, Giants, Will Jordan, and Sevu Reece. I said at the start, I'm kind of wary of Crusaders versus the Chiefs. I don't know if it's going to be a high-scoring game. I mean, it could be a bit of an arm wrestle. It does look like it's going to be pretty good conditions in Christchurch, though, so I definitely wouldn't feel bad about making these picks. Will Jordan, super solid. And Sevu Reece, he actually hasn't had a big score for a while. And what's been happening is that he's being forced to move to 13 because usually it's David Havili going off injured or something. This game, that shouldn't happen. He is starting on the left wing. He's in the 11 jersey. Shea Fihaki is on the right wing. But in the midfield, you have David Havili and Braden Enner, who has returned after a bit of a layoff. And on the bench, you have Daryl McLeod. So it's quite likely that, if Havili gets injured, McLeod's going to come on, or if someone gets subbed, it's probably going to be Enner and McLeod comes on. So yeah, there's a lot of coverage for the midfield this week for the Crusaders. So Sevu Reece shouldn't get forced to move into 13 jersey for once. And yeah, if you want a Crusaders winger, I think, yeah, he's the guy to go for, Sevu Reece. Otherwise, Will Jordan's always there. He's super solid. And even in tight games, the fullbacks can end up doing better than the wingers. So yeah, definitely not a bad option either. And other than that, I mean, Lagana Masi, interesting. Lagana Masi, he's actually starting at 15 this week. I don't think we've seen that all year. He's usually played on the wing, on the left wing actually, in the 11 jersey. So him playing at 15 is kind of interesting because I wonder if he will bring that winger instinct to 15 where he'll just want to carry the ball. He'll just want to bring it up, keep the ball in hand and run it from the back rather than kicking it. Might not be the smartest way for the team to play, but from a fantasy perspective, it could be pretty good to see that guy operating in that much space, right? Where he's got the freedom to bring it all the way up from the back and, you know, step those chases from the Blues, create a line break, something like that. I mean, yeah, I am a bit kind of dicey about picking Endrua players up against the Blues who could just turn the game into a grind if they want to, but you know, if you're feeling the Drua in Fiji, like, yeah, I think he could be a very good option to go for this week, perhaps even more so than when he's normally available. And the other thing to talk about as well is, of course, the Reds, because, yeah, I do expect them to go well against the Waratahs, especially if conditions are good. I've never really liked their back three options. I mean, you've got Tim Ryan, Lockie Anderson, and Chuck Campbell. All of them, yeah, very, very low in terms of averages in this competition. Filippo Dalguno, he is back. I am a big fan of Dalguno. The problem is, though, again, he's being forced to start in that 13 jersey. Hunter Paisami is out. They need the midfield coverage. And look, he's played 13 before, so I mean, he's fine there. But yeah, it's just not great in terms of his prospects for getting fantasy points. So yeah, I'm very skeptical of picking Reds in the outside backs, at least this week. Anyway, moving on to the midfield, and of course we have our main man in the midfield is Joseph Suali'i. This guy's pretty much a lock. He is starting at fullback again this week at home against the Reds. So just, you can never go wrong with him, even in a tough game, even in a losing effort. But we have to pick two midfielders. So who's our second one going to be? I mean, Braden Ennor, when he was playing, he did pretty decently. Got 39 in that one game against the Force, but and that was against the Force, right, when they put a massive score on it. So I wouldn't take this one game average to heart too much. He is still a good player though, but yeah, I'm skeptical about picking guys in this game, especially in the midfield. Other options I like though are Len Ikitau, because yeah, again, I like the Brumbies against the Force, even though it's in Perth. And at the moment I've selected Corey Evans. Again, this is one of the guys who's listed as a midfielder but starts in the outside back. I've brought him up in the past and picked him quite a few times, and it's never really worked out, to be honest. Like, from this game against the Chiefs, he's never really put up big scores. So yeah, I mean, it's good on paper, but in practice, it doesn't work out that well, unfortunately. He's also probably going to get subbed as well because Zahn Sullivan is on the bench, and yeah, he's going to come on. He is going to play fullback. Corey Evans is not going to get a full 80, which reduces the time he has to cash in. Definitely a guy to be aware of though, just because, I mean, the Blues potentially, they could get a lot of points against the Endrua, but definitely a lot of caveats with that pick. Another one though, another Blues option that could be decent though is Chavi Taeli. Hasn't had a lot of opportunities, but he's a really interesting player for a 12 because he's sort of got the frame of an outside back, but he plays in traffic in 12. And one thing he's got is a really good step. He's got quite good footwork, so he could go well in a game against the Endrua. Other than that, it's kind of slim pickings, right? I mean, David Havili, he's always good, same as Tupaia, but yeah, it all depends on how you feel about this Chiefs Crusaders game. Do you feel like it's going to be a high scoring game? Do you feel like it's going to be an arm wrestle? Or do you feel like it's going to be a close game but opens up at the back end like we saw with the Canes against the Chiefs? Like, is someone going to get a card and it's going to open up suddenly? You really got to think about that before you sort of pick these guys and decide how it's going to go. Bailey Kunzel's been good this year in fantasy, but that is because he was starting in the outside backs on the wings. He is back in the midfield this week. Did pretty well in that Chiefs game, but yeah, look here against the Blues when he went to the midfield, played a full game, and yeah, just got nothing going. So not really a big fan of that pick, and not a lot going on elsewhere as far as I can see. So yeah, I'm sticking with Evans for now just because the pickings are slim, but I probably will end up switching it up to Ikitau. I will be keeping an eye on the weather for Blues versus Android though as we get closer to the start of the game. Now looking at the fly halves, big news is that D-Mac is back this week. He's recovered from his hand injury. He is starting against the Crusaders, but he is starting at 10 as well. A lot of the time when we've picked him this year, he's been starting at fullback. That's where he's accumulated those really big scores. This time he is at 10, and he probably will end up switching to 15 later in the game, and I suspect that will definitely happen if the Chiefs are behind late in the game as well and need to catch up. But yeah, like I said before, I'm really not sure if this Crusaders Chiefs game is going to be a high scoring one or an arm wrestle. So yeah, that's something you need to make your mind up about, and you need to weigh up the fact that he is at 10 and not fullback as well. Something that makes it quite the decision a bit easier though is that Beauden Barrett, he is starting this game against 10 against the Endura, and he's a pretty safe bet this week, I think. Like, Barrett, whenever he's played full games, he's put up pretty good scores. And yeah, he's able to, he's able to do it all. Like, he's always going to get these try assists, whether from his passing game or his kicking game. He's still got the pace. He can score tries himself. If a gap is there, he'll run through it. He'll get a line break. So yeah, very, very solid option. I don't think he's got quite the same ceiling as D-Mac, but I don't think this is going to be like one of those games where D-Mac gets 80 points against the Crusaders playing at 10. So I'm kind of just sticking with Barrett this week, playing it safe. Looking at these other options, I mean, maybe Tommy Liner will go against the Waratahs, but it was kind of risky, right? Like, he doesn't often put up a really big score. Lolosio, haven't been a fan of him at all this week. Last week did pretty decently in that game against the Waratahs. Did end up getting a lot of shots at goal though, so yeah, really not a lot going on otherwise. I'll just stick with Beauden Barrett. Now with the halfbacks, it's kind of tricky again because our boy Cam Roigard, the Hurricanes, they are on bye this week. Roigard's not available. We have to choose the best of the rest, and there's not a lot of going on. I mean, I think these are sort of your top options all in order here, like McDermott, then Hotham, then Radama, and then Kuravali. I mean, maybe Tofa Funaki could be a bit higher. Maybe he'll go all right against the Endura, but I'm pretty much just going to stick with Tate McDermott. I do like their chances against the Waratahs. He has put up a couple of good big scores in the past, but of course he doesn't do it consistently. So yeah, not great, but still probably the best of the rest. I do kind of like Hotham because some games you do see him, he does have a tendency to snipe around the ruck, and yeah, he can get line breaks out of that, but it's just not consistent, right? Like in this game against the Highlanders, I had him and I don't think he did it once. So yeah, just these guys, they're not consistent. Just choose the one you feel best about and go with it. I'll be sticking with McDermott. Now with the loose forwards, as always, there is a lot of options, but again, a lot of our favorite guys, they're on bye this week. Like no Moana Pacifica this week, no Artie, no Miracle Failangi, like none of the usual suspects except for Carlo Tizzano. And even then, I mean, you know, how many more tries are the Force going to run in against the Brumbies this week? I mean, the Brumbies, they're a team who like to maul as well, and they can defend the maul pretty well. But still, I mean, because there's no standout options otherwise, I think Carl Tizzano is still pretty much a lock. He's a very good player. Even outside of all those maul tries he racks up. Other ones I like, I feel pretty good about. Fraser McWright. Sarah Uru's got a better average, but the Reds this week, they have a 6-2 split, and I believe, yeah, both Uru and Bryant will get subbed while McWright stays on the park for the full 80, so I think he's a pretty good pick. Hoskins Satutu, I've picked him a few times this year, and I mean, he's yet to put on a big score that we know he's sort of got in him, but it hasn't happened this year at all. And I keep saying every time I pick him and he sort of gets an average score, I always say like it's the last time, but then I end up picking him again. And yeah, that's what's happening again this week. Like it's my softest pick out of the three, but yeah, I'm going with Hoskins Satutu. Just because, yeah, like I feel like the Blues will go good against the Ndroa, even though it's in Fiji. And even if it rains a bit, he'll probably still go pretty well as well. So, yeah, Hoskins Satutu, he is on my list. Of course, you have big names, Christian Leo Willie and Luke Jacobson. But again, I keep saying it, that Crusaders versus Chiefs game, it's going to be tough. I don't know how much is going to be on offer. I would probably pretty seriously consider Leo Willie. I would drop Hoskins Satutu to take him, and I might still end up doing that anyway. The only other thing to be aware of though is that Wallace Atiti is finally getting a start. Since he's made his return, he hasn't really played a full game. So yeah, this will be his first start of the year. He'll get some good game time. He's had enough time to ease his way back into it, and yeah, they're probably gonna need him firing for the full 80 for this one. So yeah, put Satiti on your radar. Not necessarily convinced that he's gonna be an amazing fantasy pick or anything like that in general. What we've seen of him so far in his limited minutes, I mean, he's been good, but you know, not like tearing the scene up. So wouldn't get too excited about him, but yeah, definitely a valid pick. And beyond that, there's just not, everything else feels like kind of okay-ish, but not great. So yeah, I mean, I like Langi Gleeson, but he, you know, doesn't often get massive scores. Papali'i's always solid. He's got a high floor because he always makes like a million tackles. He's always making 20 plus tackles, gets a couple of turnovers. Kind of the same for this Christie guy, but yeah, they just don't have high ceilings when you get down to this sort of area. So yeah, pretty slim pickings for back rowers this week. And with the locks, never a lot going on here. Big news is that Wanga, he got injured last week, so he is not available for this game. He's pretty much the only guy that gets me excited in the lock position. So yeah, instead we just have to sort of make two mediocre picks and stick with them this week. And probably the only interesting one for me is Tom Hooper, because this week he's actually starting at number 8 instead of his usual number 6. Is that going to make much of a difference? Well, it puts him on the back of the scrum, so maybe he gets to carry off the back of the scrum. That could benefit him if the Brumbies get a scrum 5 meters out on the Forces line or something. That's something that could pay off, but I don't know. I haven't actually seen him play at 8, so yeah, this is all just theoretical that maybe he gets more of a chance to carry. Other than that, I've gone with Nick Frost, because Nick Frost, he's just consistently been sort of the, you know, best lock. Never gets a huge score, but yeah, just seems to be above average. Cullen Grace, he's another guy people like. He is probably going to get subbed this week though. Just looking at the Crusaders bench, I can't remember. I think it's Corey Kello, and Corey Kello, he normally comes on and plays 6, so he'll probably end up replacing Cullen Grace. But otherwise, Josh Canham, he's back this week as well, kind of like Tupavai, normally I'm a fan of, but yeah, tough matchup with the Crusaders, and these force locks are always pretty solid as well. For hooker this week, kind of the usual suspects. I think Ricky Riccatelli is my favorite pick. I just don't have him selected because I already have 4 Blues selected. Next cab off the rank for me is probably Richie Asiata. Big fan of him. Corey Taylor, he's solid, but yeah, he's going to get subbed for Moananu, and yeah, going to be a tough game against the Chiefs. Big news though is that Dave Porricky is finally back. I mean, look at this, been injured for about 6 weeks, and Waratahs really missed him a lot in my opinion. He's been a huge loss because he's a good line-out thrower and good maul operator, so yeah, he's a good guy to be aware of, but I would probably still pick Asiata above him this week. And with the props, I mean, we've got the usual suspects like Alan Alatoa. He just keeps scoring tries. Another guy I do like though, and I had him last week, was Marcel Renata. He got a good score because he got a good try, but a lot of points from scrums as well, and that's kind of why I like him again this week. He really shores up the Blues scrum, makes it quite solid, and they got a lot of points against that 4 scrum last week because Blues scrum was strong enough to, you know, win their own ball, but it wasn't so strong that it was getting a penalty out of the force every single scrum, and that's what allowed those +3s to accumulate. So I'm thinking maybe the same thing could happen this week against the Drua, and that also makes his partner Josh Fushitua a pretty good option to consider as well. I mean, he also got a good score last week because of all those scrums. He didn't get a try, but I mean, he made 1,000,000 tackles, so you know, always got to like guys like that. So yeah, if you've got those blue slots available, you might want to go for both of them even. But otherwise, Angus Bell's still there, Tom Robertson's still there, Norris has been good recently, and even these Crusaders props are good as well. So yeah, it doesn't make much of a difference either way, whatever you do. Now, as for captains and boosters this week, no huge standout options here. I mean, Bowden Barrett's there, and I kind of like him. I have him selected as captain in a moment, just because you always know he's always going to be a solid pick, right? He's got a really high floor because he's going to get those shots at goal. He's going to get some try assists as well if the Blues are going to be scoring tries, whether it's from the kicking game or the passing game. And he can score tries by himself as well. Sometimes he can pick up line breaks. So he's just, he can do it all. He's going to do solidly. You don't have to worry that if you pick him as captain that you're going to end up like with a winger who just gets 10 points for no reason. Other options I like though, I mean, Suali'i, playing at home against the Reds. I still think the Reds will handle them, but I mean, look, Suali'i at home, even in a losing effort, like he can get pretty good scores anyway. So yeah, he's a live option. And otherwise, on the outside backs, kind of feeling good about Corey Toole this week as well. Like, yeah, I don't know if the Brumbies are going to go to Perth and crush the Force, but there's a chance that happens, and if it does, well, yeah, I think Toole will do really well. But even if it doesn't, I think he could do well anyway. So yeah, those are the 3 sort of picks I'm feeling, and they do sort of run the gamut from reliable to a bit riskier as well. So you can pick your poison there. And as far as boosters go, I'm really not feeling any of these picks or using as a booster, whether it's the triple captain or the dual captains. I don't think this is a great week for it. Just to give you an idea though, I think the coming weeks there are some good options. Like next week, I really do like Hurricanes versus Highlanders. I think, yeah, some of these Hurricanes picks, I mean, they're playing at home. Some of those Hurricanes outside backs could run up a really good score against the Highlanders. And then even in rounds 15 and 16, I mean, you got Chiefs at home against Moana, Crusaders at home against the Highlanders. Could be a lot of points in these Crusaders and Chiefs teams this week. I mean, think about D-Mac against Moana or Jordan or Reese against the Highlanders in Christchurch. And then even in round 16 as well, Hurricanes get a shot at Moana. That could go pretty well. And Chiefs are playing the Highlanders again. Not a home game for the Chiefs, but I mean, when it's in Dunedin, at least you know it's going to be dry, right? So that could be a reliable game to hold out for if you need to. And this is going to be the last round as well. So don't feel forced to pull the trigger on your boosters just because we're getting to the business end of the season. And all of the rounds following this one, there are some really good matchups where you will be able to pull the trigger on those. So yeah, that's my advice. Just hold steady for now. Anyway, guys, that'll do it from me this week. As usual, I hope you found this helpful and or interesting. Otherwise, enjoy the rest of your week. Enjoy the games on the weekend, and I will catch you in the recap. I'll see you then.